Welcome to the Dental Decoders podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Rogars, and I'm here to help you crack the code on all things dental operations. Each week, we dive into topics to help you overcome roadblocks, streamline operations, and reduce team burnout. Whether you're an owner, a practice manager, or a team member, this podcast is for you. Join us for insightful discussions, engaging interviews, and practical tips. So sit back and relax as we crack the code on all things dental operations together. Good morning, Decoders. Super excited to have you joining us for another week of Dental Decoders podcast. This week, I have a very dear friend of mine, Jayna Swan, joining us for the episode. Jayna is one of the people that I consider in my inner circle. She is somebody I go to for advice regularly. Every time this woman talks, I am blown away by the things that I learned. So I'm super excited to have her on the show and sharing her tips with you. This episode is probably the most packed with practical takeaway tips that any practice owner, any leader, anyone who wants to be able to effectively communicate can actually take away and start using. So check out this episode. Have a pen and paper ready if you can. Otherwise, don't fret. You can check the show notes later. Or bonus points, you can listen again and take notes when you're available. So many things in this episode that I just can't even stress how valuable it's going to be for you guys. So let me tell you a little bit about Jayna, outside of the fact that she's just amazing. Jayna has invested over a decade into studying mindset and learning tools, along with techniques to help people get unstuck with the power of their own minds. Jayna is a mindset mentor and a trainer of NLP. She was formerly with Empowerment Inc. with Dr. Matt James. At her 4-day live trainings, Jayna teaches people how to improve their communication skills with yourself and others while actively rewiring your brain to behave unconsciously in a way that supports your goals. When Jayna's not on stage teaching students, you can find her moving her body. She enjoys dancing, hiking, stretching, weightlifting. Movement has played such a massive role in her overall health that she launched her app called Her Embodiment for women who are seeking more movement, meditation, and mindfulness in their lives so they can embody her healthy emotional regulation. I already know you're absolutely going to love this episode with Jayna, so I will just let you get into it. Please let us know if you love this episode and you want to hear from more amazing guests like Jayna. Hi, Jayna. Thank you so much for jumping on this week's episode of Dental Decoders podcast with me. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you.
So Jayna is one of my favorite people in the whole world. As my listeners have probably already heard, but I like to bring people into the dental podcast who maybe aren't traditionally in the dental space, so I can expand the horizons of my listeners. And I know that Jayna, as an NLP trainer, one of your biggest thing is NLP. And that's something that I think maybe outside of the box or outside of the realm of what my listeners are typically interested in or finding content about. So I am super excited to be able to expand their minds and talk all things NLP with them and the ways that that can work inside their dental practice. So can you just start by giving me a little bit of a rundown? I know myself, when you told me what you did, I thought you were a nurse. So could you give me a rundown on what NLP is and what that means and how you do what you do?
Absolutely. So NLP, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So if we break that down in itself, neuro meaning the mind, and so what you're thinking and processing, linguistic meaning the language that we choose to use, and then programming meaning how the patterns play out in our life, right? And deeper programming being our values and our belief systems. So if we tie all of that together, it's what we think and how we communicate creates the world around us. So NLP is simply the ability to model success. It's a results-based modeling. So we look at super successful people in their own right, and we break down what did they do to become successful, And then in our trainings, we teach you guys the patterns and the ways to use that, whether it's using it in your family life, your relationships, or your business. So in this case, I'm going to talk more so leaning into how can you use this in your dental business. And so what we do in NLP, we are basically a communication company, and we teach you how to communicate better with yourself and others. And so utilizing these techniques, which I guarantee you are all already using, you just don't know it. And so when we teach things, we're not teaching you something new. We're just bringing your awareness consciously to something that you're already doing on a base level. You just don't know it. And so now you can bring your awareness to that so you can be able to direct it to the way that you'd like.
I love that. I have obviously worked with you privately before, and some of the things that you've taught me about how I speak and how I carry myself when I'm teaching people has been a game changer, not just for me, but for the people that I'm training, having them absorb the content and understand it a little bit more because they're not distracted by me throwing my hands all over the place and those types of things has been just an absolute game changer. So I'm super excited to talk specifically how this can help dentists in their practice or even their team members. And one of the main things that I get questions about in dentistry is imposter syndrome and how to feel confident in diagnosing the treatment that their patients they need it, but they're uncomfortable having the hard conversation about here is what you need and here's what it's going to cost you, and they feel very out of their element in that space. Would you be able to lend a little bit of help on that?
Absolutely, because this imposter syndrome across the board, we all as humans feel this. This is, I think it's a broad thing to say it's an emotion, but it is an experience that we all have at one point or another, right? And at that point, I think the easiest thing for you to do when you find yourself in those moments where you're starting to feel imposter syndrome come up is just think about where is the spotlight in that moment. Are you thinking about yourself, which usually we are. Usually we're like, what do they think of me? Am I the best doctor? Is this? And it becomes about us. And the easiest way to resolve this is to shift that focus to your patient. Shifting that focus to them. What do they need? What, like truly putting all that focus in on your patient is going to be helpful. And then allowing yourself to just surrender and trust that you are where you are and you are who you are in this moment for a reason, and that you have everything that you need. You already have all the resources inside. And that when we remove ourselves from the head and we start to drop down into our heart and just be present with your patient, whatever comes up, trusting that gut instinct, you can't go wrong. You can't, because while we as practitioners, whether it's in the medical field and dentistry or as like myself, you may use or offer a technique to somebody and realize that that's not what they need. They need something else. Cool. So just allow yourself to go through that process and don't judge yourself too much, because the patient just wants you to be present. And that the more present that we can be with them, the more they feel like, oh, wow, this dentist cares about me. And that's unique. And that in itself is going to shift, because we'll find that we stop thinking about us and that imposter syndrome goes away. And you're like, oh, I actually am really good at this, right? Have you ever walked out of an experience where you're so in your head and you walk out, you're like, actually, that was really good. Like, you want to like self high five yourself, be like, yeah, go girl, right? That is those moments where you actually get out of your own way. And there are a lot of different techniques that you can use, but really just taking a step back and being present is probably the most simple way to allow that imposter syndrome to evaporate.
I say a lot, and I can't take credit for it, but the patient does not know if you are clinically a good dentist. What they do know is how you make them feel. And I think if we put it through that lens, it's essentially the same thing that you just said. If you shift the focus to them, they're going to have a great experience, even if you didn't place the cleanest filling. I don't know anything about clinical dentistry either, but even if it wasn't the best experience clinically, if the patient was comfortable in that moment, it's going to be a totally different experience through their lens than through your own. So I feel that
Yeah.
very much.
Like, tell me, I'd rather work with a good human than a good dentist.
Mic drop. Episode done. We
I
can go
know,
home
right? Just
now.
focus on being a good human, a good person, and actually care about the person in front of you. And sometimes that may be referring them out because you care so much that you're like, this is over my head. I am not a specialist in this, but I know someone who is. And in those moments, referring them out might feel hard, especially if you're struggling, if your practice is really like the numbers are low, whatever the case may be, just trust that when you give like that, it will come back to you. Because what happens is the next time that other doctor has someone, that dentist is like, oh, I can't take this person, but Sally over here referred me someone, so let me refer back, right? And then that's how you get a network of dentists supporting each other, because we're not in this against each other, right? We're all in this together. One person winning doesn't mean everyone else loses. So just be a good human. It will come back around to you.
I want to ask you specifically about that rapport building piece about working. You want to work with a good human. How can I make my patient feel more comfortable with me as a person, not just me as a dentist?
Yes, that's such a great place to start. Actually, this was one of our first big conversations together. We were at a networking event and you just started to tell me some things you're struggling with. I was like, number one, rapport, right? And so that word, what it means is simply people who are like each other often like each other. So it's the process of becoming like your client. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be friends with everyone. It just means that you become like them in your physiology, your tonality, and the words that you're using. So some simple things that you can do is just what we call matching and mirroring. So you're going to match what they're doing and mirror that. So what that means is if your client is sitting in front of you, maybe they had a rough day, it has nothing to do with you, but their arms are crossed. Maybe you take a moment to just slowly kind of cross your arms and you allow yourself to match the same movement that they have. Because if you're matching them in a physiological sense, on an underlying level, they recognize that. They may not recognize in the moment, like, oh my gosh, they aren't crossing their arms just like me. But their head and their mind on an unconscious or subconscious level, it's thinking, wow, this person's just like me. Maybe they're leaning on a wall, so you lean on a wall, right? These are physiological ways of doing things. You also can do it with your voice. Maybe you have someone who's a super fast talker and they just keep going and going and going. And you're just like, all right, here we go. And you just go a little faster to match them. It's going to make them feel great. Versus sometimes they're thinking, well, this dentist is just so slow. I wish they would just speed up. It's like if you just match their pace, you will become more liked. Or if they're a very slow talker, same thing. The other things you can do is like the volume. Maybe they're a little softer spoken. If you lower that volume and match where they're at, they're going to feel more comfortable with you. And the last one is words. Super powerful here is just listening to the words that people use. It can be as simple as if they say, I see what you're saying. It looks to me like you, both of those see what you're saying and look to me are visual cues, which means this person's likely a visual learner, which means if I speak back to them with the same visual language, they're going to hear me better. That's the point of communicating better, right? So if I'm hearing Brittany saying, Jayna, you look like you really have your stuff together, and I'm seeing that your business is doing great right now, like whatever that conversation is, I'm going to reply back, go, Brittany, I also see that you're crushing it. It looks to me like, using those language pieces, we call them predicates. And what that does for the other person, it allows them to go, oh, they're just like me. Like they're in my head. I literally have them in my head because these are the words we use in our own mind. We have auditory people will say, oh, does that ring a bell? You hear what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Or kinesthetic. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah, it feels so good here today. And these are all little tiny things that we can use these words, or if you hear them use a phrase over and over again, like, oh, I love that for you. When you have phrases like that, you can bring people together, right? That has a little bit of a history and a background of Brittany and I. And so we could say that one thing and it brings rapport between the two of us. And so allowing yourself to really open up and listen to the words that your patients are saying, how they're saying those words and how they're communicating with their body, and simply do your best in the most natural way for you to match that. Because when you match and mirror those things, it just makes them feel calmer and they're more connected to you. Because rapport, again, isn't about getting people to like you per se. What it is, it's opening those lines of communication and it's helping that person be more responsive. So it helps you actually get communication going between you and the client versus sometimes it feels like fighting an uphill battle of pulling teeth, literally, to try and get them to talk to you when you're like, I just need to figure this out. If there's resistance, it means that there's not rapport. And so allowing yourself to just check back in with them, connect again a little bit, take 2 sentences to just connect. So how are you doing? Tell me about your sister. Okay, yeah, your kids are doing good. It might seem off topic, but really it's going to help you a lot in the long run.
First of all, love that for you. Call back. I appreciated that very much. I also noticed, like, even in our last call, you were like, "Oh, we're clearly in rapport," because you took a drink, and then subconsciously I took a drink because you did, and that was crazy to me because that's something that I've never thought of before ever. And it's one of the things that I've taken away from you when I'm working with people is that mirroring thing, and it does really make people feel just dramatically more comfortable, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. It goes for work colleagues too. So if you have
Mhm.
employees, teams that you're managing, and you're finding that everybody's having a hard time with communicating, could be that there's not rapport. Maybe just have a good lunch together or have a dinner out or whatever that looks like for you guys and your company. But taking time to rebuild that rapport and make sure that you are doing the small things like head nodding together, or if I smile, you smile. Or like I said, I just sometimes my check in is just pausing, taking a sip of water and just noticing who else takes a sip of water. Because like it was very clear to me that day that on our call where I was like, hey, yep, Brittany, we're in rapport, and I'm just going to point this out because I know you're building this skill. So
Mhm.
it's something that goes with clients, it goes with coworkers, it goes with husbands and wives, kids, anybody and everybody. We want to always be building rapport.
And in some of the work that I do with my clients in my offices, I help them build what's called a route slip, which is a piece of paper they bring around with the patient. So we all know we're on the same page with this patient in their treatment. But I also have a section in the route slip that I make that is a rapport building section. So we can put notes about patient likes to go to Jamaica for a vacation or they have a dog named Spot. So those types of pieces of information can be in there. So as a conversation starter, we have something to reference back to. So I think that's a great add-on piece to not only are we going to do the mirroring and the matching their gestures and their tone, but also if we have those conversation pieces that we put in our patient's chart to make them feel more at home in your practice, that's going to help play on that rapport piece.
Yeah. Especially you come in, you're like, how was Spot? Last time you said he went into the vet for that little bone spur or something, whatever it is. They're going to immediately go, oh my gosh, they listen to me, right? And I'm going to go back to somebody who listens, even if they make a mistake or whatever happens, right? I'm going to be like, it's fine. They know about Spot. They care about Spot, right? That's what we're looking for, is that deeper connection. Because people, they don't pay for services because it's the best service. They pay for services because they're good humans. And we want to make sure that we continue to put the people, like allowing ourselves to see them as humans and not numbers on a piece of paper is a really great habit. Because when you start to go, oh, we only hit 10, we need to hit 12. Okay, cool. That's two humans. That's two people. That's not just a number on a page, right? And so when we start to look at them as humans, it will naturally, word of mouth, your business will grow because people are going to go, oh my God, you got to go to my dentist because they do this and they always have this prepped for me and they know I love this. And that's it. It's word of mouth, going back old school.
100%. Like I like the idea of having raving fans inside your practice or having people who can show, like, anytime somebody talks about a dentist, they're gonna mention you because they feel so at home in your practice. Because one of the sad facts that everybody hears every day is, oh, I hate the dentist. I like, every day we're told, like, I don't want to be here. And so I think that's a really stressful piece for doctors too, is trying to break down that barrier and make patients maybe not love going to the dentist, but not hate going to the dentist. And that's really stressful for doctors. So do you have any tips or any pointers on how they can kind of mitigate that stress and make patients feel at home, make themselves just be able to take a breath because they're not so stressed about patients hating the dentist all the time?
So that leads to a skill we call meta model, which is the ability to ask questions to get the person to go more specific, right? So get them, right now, they just generally say ambiguously that they, quote, hate the dentist. So that's your opportunity to go, what specifically happened that made you hate the dentist? And they go, oh, well, everything that they're about to say, write it down, have a recording, do something, because they're giving you gold. They're literally telling you what their experience was. And then it offers you the opportunity to continue to figure out. And if they tell you something else that was like, well, they weren't timely. What does that even mean? If you catch yourself in your head going, what does that even mean? Ask again. Well, what specifically do you mean by timely? And just leave open ended questions, not yes or no questions. What specifically do you mean? Right? Or how or who, right? When we ask these questions to get more specific, then we can get to the answer and go, oh, it's because they fill in the blank. You go, great. Well, guess what? Actually, here we don't do that. Here, what we do is you can tell them exactly how you're different. And that's a really great way to do that is to use the meta model to help chunk them down is what we use. It's like kind of going from people either talk really big picture and they're up in the clouds, or they're talking like in the weeds, really detailed. And sometimes we want to help get them down into the weeds for a good thing so we can understand exactly what they mean. And that's really powerful technique to use, as well as allowing yourself the opportunity to possibly do what we call a reframe. And reframing is allowing them to see it from a new perspective, right? Allowing them to recognize that the dentist isn't always a bad thing. And you can just quickly, like if they threw out, I hate the dentist, it's like, well, would you hate the dentist if your teeth were falling out and rotting in your mouth? It's like, no, I would love the dentist. It's like, okay, well, let's get you to a point to where you can shift that in your head so that you can allow yourself to love the dentist. Because how would that be if you were preventative? You actually showed up every 6 months for that cleaning. You showed up all the time each year and did your x-rays, whatever the timeliness of these things are, so that you can avoid pain in your future, so that you don't have to come in and have those nasty, tougher surgeries that we do, no extractions and none of the, deeper work. You can avoid all of that by just coming in more regularly. So that's like, there's the carrot and the stick. You have the carrot where they like go towards the thing they desire, and the stick, which is taking them away from, the pain. So sometimes we got to use the stick. Sometimes you got to be, all right, let's take what you're doing today and your habits and routine today. Let's scale this out by another 5 or 10 years. Where are we going to be? And if you're telling me I'm going to have 10 cavities and I'm going to need 2 root canals and I'm going to need these teeth replaced or whatever in 10 years if I keep doing this, that might scare me. Maybe you can tell them, here's how much financially you're going to get in the hole because the surgery is going to be this and then this. And you got, you could allow them to recognize how much money they're saving in the future by showing up now, by being preventative, and just doing it every 6 months is going to keep the cost down low versus if you don't and you go every 3 years, now you got to do this and this. I mean, you guys know your business way better than I do, but these are opportunities to get them to see it from a new perspective so they can see, oh, I hated that dentist as a kid because I was scared and because of this and that, underlying things. Cool. You're not scary. Awesome. Well, I don't want to be scared in my future because I don't want to have teeth that hurt. I don't want to have a bunch of bills I can't pay. I don't want to have those surgeries. So if you're telling me that my action steps today, doing this consistently, are going to get me to a more pleasant outcome, sign me up. Right? That's an easy way to just shift.
Yeah. Can we shift? And
Yeah.
can I ask you how we can apply? I noticed that I'm talking more calm than I normally do because of you. So I'm noticing the things that we're talking about happening right now, which
Yes.
is psychs me out every time. Can we talk about how you can apply these same set of skills not only to your patient base, but to your team and apply it to the people who you're working with every day who it may not be top of mind to build rapport with or to have them chunk down when you're talking to your team members. Can you just pivot that for me?
Yeah. So are you asking specifically that how do I get my teammate to use these tools without pushing?
Great question. How can I use these tools with my team members without it seeming, because I'm going to teach these to my team members.
Yeah.
How can I do it with them without it seeming like I'm trying to guide them in a certain direction? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, first, I think that any teammate who is a good teammate wants to be guided,
Mm,
right? So allowing yourself to take that perspective and just recognizing that you teaching your team new skills is not necessarily a negative thing. Now, someone could have a perspective that it's a negative. Here's my offer for a reframe is to say if you get any pushback from someone on your team who's like, I don't want to learn these are stupid, whatever they say, right? You can say, okay, cool. I'm just trying to teach you skills that'll help you in your relationships and family life in the future. But I mean, you guess you can keep just having breakup after breakup. That's cool too. I know, right? It's an opportunity. All I'm doing is moving this skill from this area of life and career and moving it to a different area of life with relationships. And they're likely going to be like, ooh, burn. And they're going to be like, oh, okay. So what you're saying is what you're teaching me I can use outside of the workspace. They're going to go, oh, well, then now I'm willing to learn it. Because a lot of times, what we're missing when we want to teach content, this goes for us too in our trainings. This is something we model very well. Is that while we are a very content heavy company, we want to teach you. It's like drinking from a fire hose. It's so much, right? We've already talked about, I think, 5 different techniques in this 22 minutes we've been together, right? There's so many things. Here's the thing. Nobody's going to learn the information till they understand why they need to learn this information. So if you're just sitting down going, today we're going to talk about using rapport with clients. So what you do is you match and mirror. No, they're tuning you out immediately. You have to start with why. And a lot of times that it's super beneficial to tell stories. And so we learn really well through stories. So what you're going to have the opportunity to do with your team is just say, hey guys, let's sit down. Today we're going to learn this new skill that I know is going to take our business to the next level. It's also going to help you guys get better in every area of your life. Because here, let me tell you, I have a friend, Brittany, and she is so phenomenal. She learned some of these skills and it leveled up her business. It leveled up her career, her family life. Every area of her life has gotten better since applying these things. And I really know it's going to help our clients as well as you when you go home. And so let's all band together. I know you're so excited to be able to learn all of this. And let's talk about what rapport is. So you're taking 60 to 90 seconds to just pre-frame, why are we doing this? Because that's exactly what they're saying in their head. Why am I doing this? Why am I here? I just want to go and right? That's the employee mindset. It can, if you have employees that are like excited and gung ho, like go you hold on to them. But oftentimes they're fighting this resistance uphill battle. So painting a picture for how it can help them in the broader scope of life, in their next career, in their next relationship with their kids in the future or current kids. These things people attach to the why. And they're like, cool, I don't care that this helps the clients. I care that this I'm going to take home to my kids. And that's okay because they're going to use the skill and they're going to get better at home and they're going to bring it back to the work and it'll be a natural thing. So I'm just imploring you to explore that it is a very good thing because we are not selling our team on these new skills. We are sharing them with them so they can be better humans. And again, I'm always going to come back to that because it truly, if we can just paint the picture that if we can become better humans, then we'll have a better business, then I think we're in the winning streak.
I love that so much. I like that I asked a question that you were able to then like reframe for even me in this conversation. One of the reasons why I like to talk to you so much is because you point out so many things that I didn't realize about me. And then I can then share those things with the people around me too. So I appreciate so much you taking all of the time to kind of dig into these topics. I would like to ask, I got 2 more questions for you, and then I will let you carry on with your day. First question is, if people are listening to this episode and they're intrigued by the amount of content we were able to cover in such a short time, like you mentioned, and they want to learn more about how can I work with Jayna or how can I use NLP in my practice, where can they find you and what resources can we point them in the direction of?
100%. I believe all of you should do this because whether you have your own practice or you're just a regular human looking to be a good human, I truly believe that these skills empower every single person that we bring them to. And so the best way to get fully all the information is to show up to a live event. I work with Empowerment Inc. I'm a trainer with them and we run these 4-day events that are they are top notch. I've been around companies for a long time and have never experienced an experience like this. They are not just a sit and learn company, they are a get up and experience it. And I think it's life-changing and transformative to watch people go through these. So it will change you, how you speak to yourself, how you speak to everyone else, and your business will be a result of that change. So to go to these events, you can look up online and you can go to nlp.com/training schedule. And that should get you right directly to the page where it shows you what cities we're in, what dates we're there, and you can enroll right in there and we'll get you taught. we'll get you taught up, teached up, whatever they say. I went from being super well spoken.
Yes, 100%. I will make sure I link all of that in the show notes so everybody that is listening can reach out to you and find more information on how to implement that. Last question I have for you as we wrap. I ask this question every single time. What would you consider to be your decoding moment or your secret code that has been a game changer for you inside of your career?
Ooh. I truly think just stepping into my authentic self. Something that we teach, and I had heard so many times over before NLP, during NLP, was that when we meet resistance in life, it means that there's a lack of rapport, right? So when we're with a client, there's a lack of rapport. When we in our own lives meet resistance with the things we're doing day to day, it means we are out of rapport with our own unconscious mind. I had someone one time I was talking to on the phone, and they were like, I was just dumping. They were letting me just get it out and vent because, we're all human. And at the end of the call, he goes, wow, so business and career is not easy and effortless for you? And I was like infuriated by that question. I was like, are you kidding me? No, I have to work so hard. And it's true. At the time, I was working so hard. And what I didn't realize was because I was not on my path. Now, I was on the right path because that's the path that led me to where I am today, but it wasn't the final path. What it was teaching me is there is something here to learn, because everything we experience in life, my belief is that we are there to learn something. The moment we learn that lesson, it will go away, or it will move on, or it'll evolve, right? So I was simply in a place on the path, but not the path. Because the moment I hit the path, everything got so easy. And I was like, oh, dang, this is what he meant. This is what they meant. And what it was that I finally stopped trying to be what everyone else kept telling me to be. I started just being me. And I'll tell you, it was a game changer, not just in business and in life in general, but like the ability to be in a conversation and not have to think about what you're going to say, just letting it fall out of your mouth is the most freeing thing, because I used to calculate everything. I used to be like, oh, I can't say this and I can't say that, and this is PC and that's not this, and I wasn't speaking my own heart. And so it was a lot of energy, and I was constantly feeling just drained. So now I'm in a space where I can stand here with you on this interview, and I had no idea what these questions were. I'm just like, cool. Yeah. And just whatever comes to me, I trust that that's what I'm meant to be saying. I trust that the things I talked about today are something that just one listener out there has to get something from it. And I call it a win. Right. And so for me, just showing up authentically made it super easy. And whether this is it or not for me, I don't know. Who knows? We have a whole life ahead of us. All I know is it feels really good right now. And for me, that is so much more. I don't care what people think. I don't care what my bank account says. I don't care anything. I don't even care what my family thinks of what I do. They love what I do, but I don't care. I do it because it makes me feel good. Because I wake up every day excited to do what I do versus like dreading it. And that difference meant I have so much extra energy for all these other projects and things. So while I'm traveling 2 to 3 weeks out of every month, I still have managed over the last week to build an app. And so I'm like doing other fun things, right? So the ability to be able to be authentic. And I encourage all of you to explore what that is for you and really just tie into that, because it's powerful stuff. Lots of journaling, lots of quiet time, lots of meditation, good stuff.
I am so fortunate that I have been with you for part of this journey into getting where you're at now. And I can attest to the fact that it is a night and day difference. And I'm so excited for all of the things that you're accomplishing and achieving, and that I get to be in your corner supporting you through all of this. So I'm just so glad to have you in my life. And thank you so much for taking the time to jump on this show and share all of your practical tips with our listeners. And I know that they will be blown away by all that you shared today. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear the emails that you get back where they're all telling you about how they've applied this in their business and how they're seeing their business grow and their clients coming back and more referrals. I cannot wait, because I know that day is coming.
I'm super excited. Thanks, Jayna.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Dental Decoders podcast. We hope you took away a valuable piece of information. As always, don't forget to rate, share, and subscribe to help us build our community of dental decoders. We look forward to seeing you for next week's episode.